minutes.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Tim, second by Bill.
Yep.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I think that was unanimous. And next we have approval of continuances and withdrawals, and I believe we have none.
Correct.
So we'll go past that. And we next will listen to Executive Director Office and Division Director reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tim Mock, Deputy Director of the Department of Natural Resources, got a few updates this morning. The State Land Board has a potential final candidate for the director position. Nicole Rose Marino works in the governor's office, has been selected pending final appointment by the board at the June 11th meeting. This year, the legislature, the department did very well. Again, our budget made it through the long bill with relatively few changes, as well as our legislative priorities all passed through the legislature and are on their way to being signed. I won't go into those details unless you've got any questions in particular. For the sake of time, I will point out one late breaking bill that I can't remember if I mentioned this last month or if it was even introduced when we were last together. That was House Bill 1332. This bill would require the State Land Board to convene a work group to study opportunities to advance conservation, climate resilience, biodiversity, and sustainable, equitable, low conflict recreation on state trust lands in accordance with the Colorado Outdoor Strategy and in a manner consistent with the State Land Board's fiduciary responsibilities. The work group will make recommendations to the State Land Board, the Governor and the General Assembly, and the Executive Director of the department. We expect that study will take about a year. We will be hiring a contractor to assist us in the development of that study. And as you can imagine, given the State Land Board and all of their stakeholders, that's going to be a quite robust study group. No wet rest for the weary. We are already underway on crafting our legislation and budgets for next year that will be released by the governor's budget, generally around early November. I apologize because I am going to have to leave a little bit early to actually begin the first round of budget and legislative discussions with the department. At the Colorado Outdoor Partnership Conference 2 weeks ago, Parks and Wildlife did unveil their Colorado Outdoor Strategy. It's available now online. With that in motion, we are now beginning to work on implementation, and the department will prioritize the implementation of the strategy, not only for the executive director's office, but all of our divisions as it relates to this vision as we work to elevate climate resiliency and balancing conservation and recreation. On the federal side, we're continuing to track some changes that are occurring at the federal level. Most recently, we're evaluating the recent proposed rule rescinding the definition of harm under the Endangered Species Act for state impacts. And we are currently working in close coordination with the Bureau of Land Management to develop a shared stewardship similar to that which we hold with the U.S. Forest Service. The Colorado Produced Water Consortium has 2 upcoming meetings. They have got 1 upcoming meeting. They had 1 meeting last week on Friday. The consortium was meeting to learn more about disproportionately impacted communities in Colorado. And then on June 6th, they will meet in person in Rifle to better understand produced water infrastructure and tour produced water facilities. The consortium's final statutorily required deliverable, evaluating analytical and toxicological methods to characterize produced water is due on July 1st, 2025. And then the DNR and the Energy Office are working on the study of renewable siting policies and practices required by last year's Senate Bill 212. We anticipate a draft report available late May or early June. The State Land Board, you've probably heard a lot of discussion around the Shadow Mountain and the full send mountain bike park that was proposed in Jefferson County. If you remember, the county commissioners did not approve the land use change for that piece of property, and the parcel is now, and the lease on that parcel is now expired. And so we do not expect this to move any further. And then the State Forest Service announced the release of the Colorado Forest Tracker, along with the Colorado Forest Restoration Institute. And this makes information about forest management available to the public. Basically, it tracks all of the forest health management activities throughout Colorado. I think it starts back to 10 years ago. So that's pretty exciting to have. And that concludes my report. If there's any other questions or discussion.
Anybody have any questions?
A lot to keep track of. Congratulations.
Yes,
Thank you.
very good. My apologies for being tardy. Thank you. Mr. Cunningham?
Thank you and good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Deputy Director Michael Cunningham with the Director's Report. It's spring, but it feels like summer out there. And we're in full swing right now as we head into the busy season. A lot of our staff are out conducting inspections. We got a lot of projects that we're getting ready to kick off. I'll note that the Inactive Mines Reclamation Program will begin phase 1 of the Corley Mine Surface Burn Mitigation Project. This is an earth moving and coal mine refuse fire mitigation effort to extinguish a burning coal refuse pile located approximately 9 miles southwest of Florence. Construction will begin May 19th and is expected to be completed September 4th. Mitigation efforts will address a 1.5 acre surface coal refuse pile that has been actively burning for over 2 decades due to spontaneous combustion. The pile measures approximately 35 feet tall, 150 feet wide, and 300 feet long, and is the legacy of historic coal mining on the site, which saw operations by 15 different mines between 1920s and the 1990s. So this is going to be one of our standard excavation and quenching projects. We'll excavate the burning coal seam. It'll be quenched with water on site and then blended with on-site materials, backfilled, regraded, and then seeded. So we're looking forward to getting that project off and hopefully crossing another coal mine fire off of our list. Additionally, this week, the Inactive Mines program attended the 4th grade Natural Resource Festival in Montrose. This is an annual event hosted by the Shabano Conservation District. It's something we look forward to participating in each year, as it's really an incredible opportunity to get out there and interact with the students and discuss, our state's precious natural resources. So our staff sets up silver panning stations for the students and educates them on the importance of mining and reclamation. And as you can imagine, these panning stations are a really big hit. In fact, we've got to be mindful to move one group on so the next group can come in behind them. There's approximately 450 students that come through, so quite a few students that we get an opportunity to work with. So really, really great. We look forward to that every year. To follow on Deputy Director's Mock's update on this last season's legislative updates, Senate Bill 2554. At the last hearing, we had passed through the Senate committees and we're getting ready to go before the House. Pleased to say we passed out of the House Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resource Committee with a 63-1 vote. Now our bill is just awaiting signature from Governor Polis. Upon signing of that bill, the division will automatically become a full member into the Interstate Mining Compact Commission. And then that's when really our work is going to begin on the other components of the bill. So Russ and his staff have been working hard behind the scenes in tandem with this bill to identify the necessary revisions to both the construction materials and the hard rock rules. So our plan is to start the informal process in June with stakeholder meetings scheduled monthly through October. So When we set a date, we will be addressing both hard rock and construction materials, although we'll bifurcate those meetings so we can focus individually on each set of rules. The formal process will commence January 2026. We plan to hold formal stakeholder meetings in January and February, and the rulemaking hearings would occur in March and April. The hearings will be separated for construction materials and hard rock. Also want to let the board know, in the fall of 2024, we began conversations with Senator Pelton and Weld County commissioners regarding agricultural activities in the county. I think as the board is aware, Weld County is Colorado's leading producer of beef cattle, grain, sugar beets, and is the state's leading dairy producer. As such, there are numerous earth-moving activities within the county for agricultural purposes. At times, we are in a position where we have to weigh in on those activities and determine whether or not they require a reclamation permit. This typically comes about through one of two mechanisms. Either a proponent of a project submits an is it mining questionnaire to get a determination from the division on the need for a permit. The other mechanism comes through the citizen complaint form. This would typically be when a project has already commenced. A neighbor might take notice of it, have some concerns, have some questions. They'll send in information to us, and then we'll take a look at that, usually have a conversation with the county at the same time. Our role, of course, is to ensure that mining activities are permitted across the state. However, we are sensitive to not overstepping our boundaries, and we work hard to not duplicate any regulatory efforts between the state and the counties. So in those conversations with Weld County commissioners and Senator Pelton, we agreed to enter into an intergovernmental agreement to clarify our respective roles and responsibilities. That IGA was signed on April 21st and memorializes that the division will not require a reclamation permit for operations in Weld County, where the county issues a permit when the primary purpose of the activity is removal of materials during either reservoir cleanout or land leveling operations. Land leveling operation, a typical land leveling operation might be earthwork that needs to be done for a center pivot sprinkler system. Of course, you need relatively flat land for that. So there's always ongoing maintenance and work that needs to be done. Sometimes that makes its way to us. But really, we think we found a good position with the county. I think this highlights some good cooperation. A couple key things to note is that these activities will be permitted by the county. So there's going to be oversight and an assurance that reclamation will be performed. Anytime the county issues a permit for one of these activities, they will also notify us. So we'll have an ongoing opportunity to just make sure that the activities that are being approved and not permitted through our office are in line with what we put into this intergovernmental agreement. And I'm happy if the board would like to see a copy of that, we can send out copies to the board. I see some hands, so we'll get that out for the board. But just wanted to note that I think that was a good example of cooperation with our counties. Also note, next week, Russ and myself are going to be attending the second annual Native American Mining and Energy Sovereignty Symposium. That's going to be May 20th through 21st in Ignacio, Colorado. The event's going to bring together tribal leaders, federal and state government, industry, and academia to discuss and share thoughts on how to support decision-making and energy and mining development and finance on tribal lands. This will be our first time attending the symposium, so we're just looking forward to getting down there and learning more about these important issues. The last thing I'll note for the board this morning is a copy of the Office of State Auditor's report and findings on the mine audit that was conducted on the Mine Subsidence Protection Program was provided to the board. As a reminder, this report remains confidential until we get to the June 16th hearing before the Legislative Audit Committee. I think we indicated in the email to the board that OSA staff would be present, and if the board had a desire to have any discussions or ask questions, we could go into executive session. At the guidance of the board's attorney, we're going to hold off on moving into executive session until this has been released by the Legislative Audit Committee. So this will be in time for the June hearing. So what we'll do is we will put a discussion item on the June hearing, and then we can have an open discussion with the board, address any concerns, answer questions. And then at that time, we'll also be able to tell the board how we have responded to those recommendations and how we intend to implement. So that concludes the director's report. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are.
So I have a question about the IGA. I mean, I guess I need to read it first, but actually, that is one of the reasons I'm probably on this, because I have a vested interest from Agriculture Conservation Board and here.
Mhm.
So that's there were actually questions that came up on the Conservation Board because there were farmers not in Weld County, but in a different county that moved a certain amount of volume, cleaning
Mhm.
ponds. I mean, this is an ongoing thing. It's wonderful that you guys have potentially made a model for other counties as well, right? But so you, I guess, without prolonging it, if you get a grading permit from the county
Mhm.
for whatever your activities are, whether you're a farmer or if you're gonna grade a pad for a barn or what, if you have a grading permit, that's what you need, unless you're gonna sell the material, that automatically becomes a mining.
Yeah, in some instances, in this particular one for Weld County, it wasn't based specifically on a grading permit. It was really the intent of those activities being related to agriculture.
Interesting.
But you raise a good point, which is that this is certainly not unique to Weld County. It was just happened that Weld County,
Yeah.
being the biggest agriculture producer, has a number of examples that we deal with every year. And so it made sense to enter into that IGA with them. But certainly happy to continue conversations with the board, discuss whether or not this would be appropriate to have as more of a statewide policy as opposed to doing this on an individual level with the counties.
I mean, I don't know, the specific question that came up for my service on the Conservation Board seemingly went away, but I can see this as a really, important aspect of where one agency, leaves off or whenever starts or whatever, so farmers are not overwhelmed. Miners are not overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
Very good. Any other questions?
I'm very curious about what the status is right now of tribal lands. Are they subject to our oversight, or do they have?
They're not, it's a good question. So tribal lands, and we have two tribes in Colorado, Southern Ute, Mountain Ute. Those are sovereign lands, sovereign nations. And so really, I think we have had interactions with the tribes before, and it's a variety of different things, anything really that might have an impact on the tribes. And so I think Governor has prioritized the Department of Natural Resources communication and interactions with the tribes. And so this is really just an ongoing conversation to see, what our role might be or how we can aid in that mining and energy development on those tribal lands. But yet it's totally separate from the regulations that would apply elsewhere in the state.
Very good. Thank you, sir. So the consent agenda, nothing on the consent agenda, right? So next, we have a formal public hearing for one case, file number M-2003-001, Brinco, Colorado LLC. Do I need to get everybody's testimony or raise their hand?
Yeah.
Everybody involved in this testimony swear to tell the truth? Thank you, sir.
And believe you have someone there.
Oh, do we have someone online? Do we have someone online for this case?
I don't,
No.
doesn't look like it.
Okay,
Okay,
sir,
good
thank you.
morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Jason Music. I'm the Coal Program Director for the division, and I serve as the board's representative for the pre-hearing conference as the pre-hearing conference officer for this item. The pre-hearing conference for this item was occurred on April 29th, and 7 of the parties identified by submitting timely objections to the division. 3 of those parties attended the pre-hearing conference. As such, the 3 parties that were present during the pre-hearing conference maintain their party status up to this point. And as noted in the division's rationale for recommendation for approval, the items identified as issues presented by the objectors were determined by the division to be items outside the jurisdiction of the division in this board. So through discussions with the parties at the pre-hearing conference, It was agreed that those items remain non-jurisdictional at the conclusion of the pre-hearing conference. So based on the lack of the board's and division's jurisdiction concerning the issues presented, the draft pre-hearing board order presented to you does not include any jurisdictional issues, nor does the draft order identify a recommended presentation order or timing. So with that, I'm able to answer any questions that you have on the pre-hearing order or the pre-hearing conference that occurred. Anybody? Okay, so I'm happy to present that board order for your approval.
Are we gonna have presentation?
Are we gonna have a presentation on?
Yeah, but I believe you,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, did it,
you have to adopt the board order.
yeah, the pre-hearing order, so you just need a,
Motion to approve the
got it,
pre-hearing order.
got it. Do a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Passes.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Good morning. I'm Nikki Gagnon. I'm an environmental protection specialist with the division. I am assigned to Weld County and I was the primary reviewer on the Nissen Farm Resource Amendment application. I'm going to present the application to you, explain the objections we received, and then present the staff recommendation. There we go. The applicant for, this is a general 112C amendment application. The applicant is Burnco, Colorado. The current permit area is 134.21 acres. The applicant proposes to add 28 acres for a processing facility, and if approved, the total acres will be 162.21 acres. The primary commodity mined at the site is sand and gravel, and the surface and subsurface owners at the site are the Central Colorado Water Conservancy District owns the area where the existing mining operation is occurring, and Tricycle Lane, Texas owns the amendment area parcel. This is the location of the site, right here in the center. It is about 2 miles east of Greeley and 2 miles northwest of Kersey. This is the South Platte River. The site lies right in the floodplain of the South Platte. And the easy way to find this on a map is this is the northernmost point of the South Platte in Colorado. So Burnco is currently permitted to mine and process sand and gravel within a slurry walled pit. The post-mining land use will leave a 93-acre water storage reservoir operated by the Central Colorado Water Conservancy District. Burnco proposes to move the existing processing facility and stockpile area out of the mining pit to an adjacent 28-acre parcel outside the floodplain. This will allow them to complete mining and reclamation of the reservoir. The process methods that will occur on the processing area is crushing, screening, and washing. And the post-mining land is proposed in the amendment area is pasture land. This is a March 2025 Google Earth image, so this is recent. This is the South Platte River right here on the west side. The yellow outline around the boundary, that is the existing mining permit boundary right now. The blue line in the inside is a slurry wall that was installed in 2005, excuse me. And that'll be the boundary of the reservoir when it's completed. The processing facility right now is right in the center of the mining area. There are stockpiles, processing equipment, and this is their water that they use for processing. This red line is the proposed 28-acre amendment area. It's a parcel that's on a terrace about 15 feet above the floodplain. This is where they propose to process material and move their stockpiles so that they can complete mining here. They've begun mining the east side of the reservoir, and then once they've done with that, they'll mine under where the processing equipment is now. A couple things I'll also show you on this map while we have it up. This is County Road 58, and this is Weld County Parkway. And then there's a plumb ditch that runs right through the amendment area. No disturbance will occur adjacent to the ditch in the amendment area. All the disturbance will be up here, which is on the terrace above the ditch area. Is that an easement? Is that ditch through it?
This is the existing processing facility that exists on site right now.
It contains a crusher, a series of screens that separate the material by size. It's washed to remove fines, and then they convey it into these stockpiles. So this is what they'd like to move up to the adjacent parcel. This is their mining plan. This is what they submitted with the application. This is their proposed plan. The dotted dash line is the amendment area. So this is a 28 acre amendment area. The operator proposes they'll strip the topsoil and store it in berms for reclamation. They're going to install 2 screening berms, one on the east side and one on the south side. These screening berms will minimize dust and noise to the neighbors. The berms will be seeded immediately after they place them. And that'll help control erosion. And they also are planning to construct a small 2-foot berm on this northern end of the processing area. And that'll just help with stormwater mitigation, keep the stormwater in the processing area. And so it doesn't flow down into the ditch. They're also going to improve the access point down here on Wells County 58. And so the processing facility will be placed approximately right here in the center of the site, and then the stockpiles will be around it. The mine material will be trucked from the mine site, or they're proposing to convey it. Once they get approval from the ditch company, they might convey it from the site into the processing area. It will be crushed, screened, washed, and placed into stockpiles, and then moved off-site once it's sold. No acidic or toxic materials will be mined or used in the processing. No groundwater is exposed in this area, and the stockpiles will be watered to control dust. This is the proposed reclamation plan for the entire site. This will be the large 93-acre water reservoir, and that will be operated by Central Water. This is the amendment area. That will be a pasture land. So all stockpiles will be removed from this site. They'll regrade the land to a level pasture. They'll replace it with 6 inches of topsoil and seed it with some native pasture grasses. And in case you can't see the seed mix, it's things like Indian rice grass, blue stem, little blue stem, switchgrass. Those are good pasture grasses. So I'll go over the chronology of the application process. The DRMS received the amendment application on October 3rd, 2024. We deemed it complete on the 24th, and that started the noticing process. On November 20th, we conducted a pre-op inspection of the site. And then on December 3rd, the public comment period closed. DRMS received a single timely comment letter signed by 7 adjacent landowners. No agency comment letters were received on this application. On December 6th, DRMS sent a preliminary adequacy review letter to the applicant. And then on March 24th, 2025, DRMS received Burnco's response to the adequacy review. On April 8th, DRMS sent a second adequacy review letter. And then on April 9th, Burnco hosted a public meeting with the adjacent landowners to hear their concerns. On April 11th, Burnco responded to DRMS's second adequacy letter. And also on April 11th, we sent out the pre-hearing conference and formal board hearing notice to the objectors and to Burnco. On April 18th, DRMS completed our review of the application and we issued a recommendation for approval. We held a pre-hearing conference on April 29th, 2025. Two of the adjacent landowners objecting parties attended the conference. And here we are today for the board hearing. So I'll go over the objections we received. These are the issues raised by the objecting parties. They're grouped by the following 5 categories. Concerns regarding aesthetic impact and quality of life, concerns regarding dust and air pollution, concerns regarding the use of County Road 58, concerns regarding a private property road, concerns regarding a previously permitted concrete batch plant and expired Weld County permit. And the division determined these issues are non-jurisdictional to DRMS. And I'd like to pause here and just point out that although we found these are non-jurisdictional, they're not unimportant. They're important issues, but DRMS doesn't have jurisdictional authority over these issues. But I'll present them to you now so you understand what the concerns are. The first one, concerns regarding aesthetic impact and quality of life. The Acton rules do not address impacts to visually appealing landscapes, aesthetics, hours or days of operation, and quality of life. The division and board do not have jurisdiction over these issues, which are typically addressed at the local government level. These issues should instead be addressed with Weld County. The applicant has affirmatively stated in Exhibit M of their permit application that the existing Weld County use by special review permit will be revised prior to initiating any land disturbance in this amendment area. The second issue is concerns regarding dust and air pollution. The Acton rules do not specifically address air quality issues. Such issues are under the jurisdiction of Weld County and the Air Pollution Control Division of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. The applicant has affirmatively stated in their Exhibit M of the application that the existing air permit for the mine is currently under revision to incorporate the amendment permit area. The Acton rules do not authorize the division to directly regulate dust or air pollution issues. However, the applicant committed to installing screening berms along the south and east boundaries of the amendment area to minimize dust and noise and visual impacts to the neighbors, and they'll also water the stockpiles to mitigate dust. Concerns regarding the use of County Road 58. The Acton rules, which provide the jurisdiction of the division and board, do not address public road access, use, or design issues. Such issues are under the jurisdiction of the Colorado Department of Transportation and the Weld County Department of Public Works. The applicant is, as I noted before, the applicant has stated in Exhibit M that the amendment, that the Weld County use by special review permit will be revised prior to initiating any land disturbance in this amendment area. And this one, concerns regarding a property road. So over the years, an adjacent landowner has been allowed to access the amendment property, allowed to cross the amendment property and the existing mine area to access their 35-acre property along the river. They use it for hunting and fishing. However, it's the division's understanding that no formal access agreement exists to allow this access. The rules do not address access agreements or allow the division of war to adjudicate property rights. In the applicant's response to our first adequacy review, Burnco stated that they intend to continue allowing access through the mine for the Fosters. Now, the Fosters did not attend the pre-hearing conference and therefore no longer have party status, but I'll explain this issue to you anyway, so you understand what their concerns were. This is again, the Google Earth image. The Foster's home is right here. This is the amendment parcel, use the red line. The Foster's home is right here. It's about 275 feet to the permit boundary. They have a driveway that gives them access to County Road 58. So their access to their home is not the concern. We're talking about this property up here to the north. They have this river property that they've used it historically for their family to hunt and fish. They currently have access off Weld County Parkway along the west side of the permit area. There's a dirt road along here. They can access their property there. But over the years, they've been using this access. There's a little 2-track dirt road across the tricycle lane property, and then they've just been crossing the mine site, kind of a handshake agreement with the existing mining operator. This was for a long time pasture. They're mining it now, but for a long time it was pasture, so they were just cutting across. Once it's a reservoir, they won't be able to do that anyway, but they do have access on the west side. Burnco is proposing to give them access on the east side over here. So kind of out of the mining area, it's safer, and then they can go along a dirt road and then access their property. This requires an agreement between Burnco, the tricycle folks, and the Central Water. They have to work out an access agreement. That is not DRMS's jurisdiction. So that's what their concern is. But I do want to, it's important to note that they do have access to their property right now on the west side. And the last objection was concerns regarding a previously permitted concrete batch plan and expired Weld County approval. So Weld County had previously permitted a standalone concrete batch plant on this amendment parcel. The division and the board do not have jurisdiction over permits issued by other government agencies. In their response to the first adequacy letter, Burnco stated the permit for the concrete plant is expired, and they submitted a Weld County Board of County Commissioners resolution vacating the use by special review permit effective February 26, 2025. Prior to initiating operations in the amendment area, the operator must obtain the required approval from other applicant government agencies, including obtaining a special review permit from Weld County. So those are the objections. And we'll move on to the staff recommendation. Rule 1.4.9 parent 1 is why we're here today. If a timely and sufficient objection or petition for a hearing on a 112 permit application is received by the office from a party pursuant to Rule 1.7, the office shall set a date for consideration of the application in conformity with the provisions of this rule. Such date shall be no more than 90 days after the application is filed with the office. The date for consideration may be extended pursuant to specific rules. Instead of a decision, the office will issue a recommendation to the board and set a date for the office consideration. Therefore, after conducting a thorough technical review of the application on April 18th, 2025, the division determined that Burnco Colorado LLC's permit amendment application satisfies the requirements of the Act and the rules, and issued its recommendation to the board to approve the construction materials 112 amendment application AM1 for the Nissen Farm Resource. Permit number M2003001 over objections. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have the operators here And there is an objector here too.
Could you show us where the traffic patterns, where were they accessing? Where are they now accessing 58 from?
Oh,
And
yeah, let me-
will this be changing under the middle?
Yes, so this is the current mine site. Right now, they're coming in right here off Highway 58. So the trucks come in, there's a scale house, everything right here. And they get the material and then they exit. Burnco is proposing an exit over here. So I think they want to enter here, come through here, and then they'll exit on 58. But this is all going to be Weld County's decision on where the traffic pattern. Weld County will decide if that's what they prefer. Weld County could say you need to stay on the parkway, or they might prefer that they have this circular pattern. But right now, the mining plan that we're considering today is they enter here and then they exit here on County Road 58.
So will the access point change?
It could in the future if Weld County wants to change it, or if Burnco wants to change it. So they would get their permit approved through Weld County, and then they would come back to us, submit a technical revision to change their mine plan to say, we changed the access.
But right now, there's no request to change the access point.
Right now, no, the plan is to upgrade the exit right onto Weld County 58.
And the landowner that has been accessing his property through this area is not going to be denied access through that area.
Well, the landowner, the adjacent landowner can currently access their parcel at the entrance to the mine site. There's a dirt road on the west side of this permit area that takes them to their site. The operator can answer about the negotiations that are ongoing about giving them access. I believe they blocked the gate and they're not allowing them to cross the amendment parcel at this time. It'd be unsafe once this is approved and they start processing. They wouldn't want the public going through there.
They've worked it out in the past, and
Apparently,
we
yeah.
don't have any reason to believe they won't work it out in the future.
I don't. I'm sure the
Okay.
operator can talk to you about the conversations they've had with the Fosters.
There's no
Yeah,
use
so we'll give you-
of dynamite at this facility, is there? I mean,
No,
it's all slush and crushing rock.
correct. Yeah, this is just sand and gravel excavating.
So I have a couple of questions because I'm a little fuzzy on all the permitting. So the permitting for the original mine or for the actual mined area is still in force, the land use permit.
Correct, yeah.
All
no
that is
changes.
just progressing, whatever. The amendment parcel had a permit for a concrete batch plant that expired. But now they want to actually do their processing. It's not a concrete batch plant, but it's processing for the materials, right?
Correct, that's what they're.
So they're applying for a land use, a special use permit through Weld for that operation, but that hasn't been granted yet.
Correct,
But
yeah.
is it in process or they're working on it?
Weld County prefers that they come to DRMS first because we flesh out a lot of the issues first. And then once
I got it.
they get this permit, then they go to Weld County, and Weld County will address all the issues we've talked about today. Transportation and, access, things like that.
But theoretically, they won't be able to proceed without getting that special use permit
Correct.
approved through the county.
Right, they
Right.
cannot.
All of these contingencies it's contingent upon that special use permit, getting that approved for them to actually do this. We're just clearing the way from a mining standpoint.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And then the access, just, you said something a minute about they're working on, an answer for that where they could go around the east end. But that would involve the tricycle, the Fosters and Burnco properties, or, I mean, are they just having ongoing discussions to try and figure out how they can get to their property and that will get documented somewhere, or is that like, where are we on getting them access to their property across?
The operator can probably best speak to how those negotiations are going. The division, we don't facilitate, agreements from one private property owner to access another private property owner's property.
Yeah.
So it's between those entities. there's nothing in our rules that allows us to adjudicate that.
Anybody else have any questions for staff? Can we have the applicant? Let's give the applicant a minute.
Want to present or do you want to just have the question? You want to present? Okay, so
Do you have a
Let me bring it
formal
up for you.
presentation?
It's very informal.
Okay, all right.
It's mostly just pictures.
No, that's fine.
That site changed, now we got
Yeah,
a.
there's some fan there, man, I'm telling you. They have
Ocean front in Colorado's always been an issue.
processed more than we thought, maybe.
Plenty of sale, that's for sure.
Okay.
We just converted it to PowerPoint, so just use arrows to go down.
Gentlemen, can I have you identify yourselves for the record, just so it's on record?
Yeah. Absolutely. Good morning. My name is Chris A. Strike. I'm the general manager of Burnco, Colorado's aggregate division here in the state.
Joelle Bolduc, Land and Environment Manager for Burnco.
Recognizing from last.
Yep. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. We have a very brief presentation here, just a few things that we wanted to cover. Nikki's presentation is very comprehensive and covers all aspects of the application, so I won't repeat a lot of that information. This slide is just a bullet list of the items that we covered in the community meeting, which was attended by around 8 different neighbors. This is an aerial of the site. The green berm is what we initially proposed and what's in the application. Based on the community meeting, we are going to submit a technical revision to revise the application to extend the berms in the northeast corner, just to the edge of the terrace. There's the tricycle parcel is an upper terrace, and then the mining area is on a lower terrace. And then we're also going to extend on the southwest corner, the berm to just loop around a little to the north was requested by the neighbors. And then the neighbor to the west requested that a berm be installed between his property and the processing plant. So that's the red berm in the upper northwest corner.
And those are the same dimensions as these other big berms, 20 foot high or whatever?
Correct. I would say probably they'll end up in the 15-foot range. Yeah. Yep. Pictures of the processing operation, series of conveyors bringing the raw material to the plant, and then the dry screen and crushers in the upper right picture. Bottom left picture is the wet screen, where water is sprayed on the rocks, basically to wash the rock so that it's clean for the concrete application. And then the picture on the bottom right shows a wet screen with approximately 30 water sprays washing the rock. This is an example of a site berm. This is along Highway 85. It gives an example of what the site berm is going to look like that we're going to install to shield the operation from the neighbors. And then a few environmental pictures here. Example, water truck for spraying water on the roads, keep dust down. Water spray on the crusher in the upper right corner. And then within the last 6 months, we've gotten a new diesel tank for the Nissan site. And also within the last 2 weeks, a new used oil tank for the site. And that's it on the pictures. There were a few things I wanted to address based on the questions that you've had previously. First, the traffic pattern for the pit operation. Today, it does come in and out from Weld County Parkway. Our initial plan that we submitted in the application was to modify that slightly to have traffic come in off of Weld County Parkway, but exit onto County Road 58. Based on the community meeting and feedback from the neighbors, we are gonna request from the county that we continue using the access off of Weld County Parkway for inbound and outbound traffic. Regarding the Foster's access, the primary concern for us, there's two concerns. One is that the Foster's request to have easier access to their river property. That's a concern. The other concern for us was safety related. Our site is regulated by the Mine Safety Health Agency, and we cannot allow, private civilians to pass through the active mining operation. So initially we had them use access to the west, but that involves them having to get onto the county road, the Weld County Parkway, and oftentimes they take their four-wheelers, off-road, not a passenger vehicle, but like a motorcycle type vehicle. So they cannot go on to the public road. So what we have done, Nikki referred to it as proposed access. However, we have implemented that access on the east side of the property. So they can go directly from from their main property through the very east side of the central property to access their river property.
That's on the central well property. I mean, it's on your operational property, or is that on,
The far eastern corner, outside the active operation.
but it's on property that you're controlling?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And is there an access agreement for that then?
It's informal at this point.
But we're open to papering that. Yeah. And then just for clarity, the Tricycle Lane, Texas, is co-owned by, so the Burns family owns Burnco. And Tricycle Lane is a Burnco company. It's
Oh.
just, they're distinct legal entities. But in essence, as we operate, Burnco is Tricycle is Burnco. So when Tricycle owns the land, we have control and authority over the land, if that makes sense.
Oh, that cleared up a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. I get it.
And that's all that we have. And
Yeah.
happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, and if I could just make a few comments. I want the board and the staff to understand, and I hope we have this reputation already, that we do take our role as an operator in the state and as a neighbor very seriously. We know it's a privilege to operate in communities. It's not a right. And we do endeavor to be a good operator. I won't say we're perfect. Nobody is. But we are taking tangible steps to be a good neighbor. We're investing this year in $150,000 in an upgraded water truck so that we can have additional water spray capacity to cover the now more area that we have disturbed. We are investing in the silent white noise backup alarms on the loaders and the mobile equipment. And to the point of the mine planning, I apologize, the site planning, we are serious about those berms. We did that at our Ewing operation in Fort Lupton with very good success with the neighbors there and no complaints. And so I just want the board to understand that, there will always be potential for friction between mining companies and neighbors. That's life, right? That's the rub of owning real estate next to one another, right? I mean, we have disputes with our neighbors in our neighborhoods, but we do operate in good faith, and we have every intention of being a good neighbor and remaining to be a good neighbor and doing what we can to get along peaceably, because sand and gravel, the aggregates that we mine, they're essential for our everyday life. The state needs it. We need more of it. And we view it as our obligation to provide that necessary resource in a very holistic, sustainable way.
How long have you been operating the facility?
So Burnco acquired Bestway Concrete and Aggregates in 2017, I believe. So Bestway, formerly part of Hall Irwin Corporation, there's a bit of a tangled history there. I believe the 2003 initial permit was filed by Hall Irwin, if I'm not mistaken. And so anyhow, so the permit, obviously it was applied for in 2003. Burnco has been operating the site since 2017, I believe.
And they were the ones that had the concept of operating a concrete facility next to it you're not gonna do that.
No, we have no intention of doing that. No, the market does not support, the kind of the history behind that was at the time, the thought was that, you know, it really is a booming market, no doubt, but the thought was that was an opportune place to put a concrete batch plant. You know, after further study and a little more analysis of the market, it was determined by our ready mix concrete division that that didn't make a whole lot of sense. And to just operate, service that territory out of our Milliken batch plant facility. So no, we have no intention of putting a batch plant up at the Nissen property.
Yeah, that permit expired and then in January, we formally vacated it with Weld County.
And that's a county issue anyway, correct?
Correct.
That's not our.
Correct.
It's not our deal.
I'll reiterate the main point of why we're doing this amendment is 80% of the site is mined at this point. It's been ongoing for a number of years. But to mine underneath the plant, we actually physically have to move the plant. And so we're expecting that we're projecting 2 to 5 years to finish mining, depending on market conditions. So we have purposely put the plant inside the pit to minimize the impact, but at this point, we have to relocate it outside to finish up the mining of the site.
Does your processed water pond stay the same place or do you move it with you?
Great question. Yes, the ponds will stay where they are inside the slurry wall as it is today. And we'll just pump to and from those ponds.
Got it. Looking into the future, how long do you plan to be in this property?
In terms of processing, realistically, 2 to 3 years. But I'll say 5 years on the outer bounds.
Given
You
market
said
conditions.
based on market conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's a recession and people stop pouring concrete, we'll obviously have less demand for our product, so.
How many trucks a day are coming in and out? Is that gonna stay fairly consistent based on market conditions?
Yeah, I don't have an exact figure, but it does ramp up and down with the
Season.
with the season and with the market demands, obviously.
I think it's notable that, while you intended to use 58 across from all those houses, you're gonna reroute and use the same access points in and out both, right? And so that's no change in the practice being done
That
as a
is,
concession to the neighbors.
that is correct.
Correct, yeah.
Weld has to approve that though.
Yes,
Or-
Weld County will have to approve that, but yes, that was again part of it being a good neighbor. When we said you heard the number, I mean, there were multiple complaints, right, and issues, but the number one was 58, 58, 58, and we heard them loud and clear. And that was a concession we were able to give. Now it is contingent on Weld County approving it.
Right.
So we don't have direct control, but that is our intent.
It is currently approved to use that access.
That's what you're doing now.
Correct.
And you were
Yeah.
gonna change
Oh,
it and you want to leave it the
That's
same
gonna
way
change,
basically now.
Yes,
But the county has to approve that.
correct. That it'll go for reapproval, if you will, when we open up the permit. Yeah.
This is another county issue, not ours, but I'm just curious about the complaints about dust and air pollution. And looks like you're using a lot of water spray. Maybe during peak drought, high wind, it's a problem.
Correct, yeah. I would say during high wind events, it's natural that you have disturbed area that you will have dust. We do employ the methods that are required. There was a complaint, the only complaint that I'm aware of during the course of our operation that I'm aware of was a couple weeks ago. And the Weld County inspector came out to the site and found no dust.
Do you have any questions from online?
No questions from me.
Was the April, I saw in the presentation that you met with you had a public meeting in April. Was that your first one with the communities or has that been ongoing as throughout the operations?
No,
There's been one-on-one communication, like especially with the Fosters, just given that that was one of the more direct complaints or issues that we could solve one-on-one. But that was the first time we had a robust public meeting with all the objectors invited.
You really don't have a lot of neighbors, do you? I mean,
Not a tremendous amount.
Correct.
About
There's one to
58.
the west, one to the east.
Yeah, I mean,
And then around a dozen to the south on County Road 58.
And of note, Richard Boris, the gentleman who owns the land directly to the west of our Tricycle Lane parcel, he attended, and he had a favorable, he essentially said, I'm not bothered by what's going on today, so didn't have an issue
You
with
added the
it.
berm for him.
And that was the only thing, was adding the berm.
You had the berm for his vigil
Yep.
in front of the plant.
Correct, yeah.
Who do the neighbors contact or how they could get a hold of you if they have some concerns?
They do have our contact information, the folks that attended the meeting or have been in contact with us at any time.
Yeah, we distributed my direct cell phone, Joel's direct cell phone, the site manager's direct cell phone number, as well as our emails.
And they got you.
Is everybody
glad it's me, not.
Everybody, oh, yeah. Okay, should we give the objectors that are objector in the room? Should we
Thank
give them, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yep, thank you.
I don't particularly have much to say. I just wanted to ensure that I showed up and maintain my party status.
Oh, very good.
and, that the party objections were covered as part of this process here. Really the only thing that, and I apologize, didn't bring it up in the previous meeting, but I think it is relevant. Curious from y'all at Burnco, that access plan. I thank you guys for being willing to, pursue the access via 49 and not sending those trucks out on 58. That's appreciated by the neighborhood. My question is, there's the plum ditch irrigation there that lies between the mine parcel and the proposed amendment area. Curious in terms of safety, in terms of that crossing with the significantly increased truck traffic coming back and forth there. And also like just in terms of like water quality, silting, those types of things. Obviously, that's more plum ditch issue than us, but I think it's relevant in this context with, being concerned of the water safety and stuff like that.
Certainly, I can speak to that. I don't know if I need to go back up or, so.
You probably need to see the name of the objector, so he's on record.
Yeah, sorry,
we maintaining the party.
We can just get your name too.
Thanks, Doug.
So, Ben Lobbin, 23952, County Road 58.
Perfect.
Chris A. Striker, Burnco. Yeah, to answer the question, so what we're doing with the plum ditch, the truck crossing, the bridge that is built is engineered to CDOT heavy use specification, so it has been engineered. I believe, Andy, did you do the engineering on that? Okay, but it has been engineered and built to CDOT industry standard specifications to accommodate the heavy customer trucks that we have, obviously. And as part of our negotiations with Plum Ditch on the crossing, we are going to put a belly pan in underneath the conveyor so that if there's any carryback on the bottom end of the sand and gravel, it'll be caught by that belly pan, and then we'll clean it out so it doesn't dump into the ditch.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is that good? Very good. All right. Any other discussion? Anybody? Online, no other discussion?
I guess this is a state issue, but did bonding change on this project?
Yes, it did increase about $100,000. So if once
And
approved,
that's adequate?
yes, yeah, it's adequate now, and then it'll increase if this is approved, it'll
And
increase.
and it's probably adequate in the future, because if we're looking at 3 years, lifespan 3 to 5 years, bonding's a big issue.
Correct, yeah, so we reevaluate the bonds every time we conduct an inspection of these sites. So we conduct inspections approximately every 4 years at these sand and gravel sites, so it will be reevaluated within that time period.
Does it have like a separate bond for the amendment and then the original permit, or does that all get kind of wound into one?
It's wound into one,
Yeah.
but they're individual line items for each
So it's, yeah,
each component of
it's
reclamation.
comprehensive of the whole thing that's approved eventually.
Correct, yeah.
What's the amount of the bond?
It's going up to 400 and
Current bond amount is $906,500. With the amendment approval, it'll go up to $1,097,117.
And We all feel that's adequate, both parties.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Does he need to read the file number when he says that, or how, what's the best way to make sure?
Yeah, I mean, as long as the motion is clear that you're approving the amendment application, we can run with that.
Can you read that?
Sure.
When you make the,
Sure.
just use the file number.
Yeah.
So that we all know.
I motion that we approve file number M-2003-001, Burnco, Colorado LLC.
Very good. The amendment application.
Second?
Okay, we have a second. Any other discussion? Vote? All approved?
Aye.
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 Any against? Hearing none, it passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So we have a discussion.
Why are we here?
Perfect, thank you. Hey, guys, take care. Yeah, sure. Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Which one? Stand up, let them down, or the board presentation, reclamation?
No, it's the San Miguel.
Stand up.
Yep, that's it.
Let me just a second.
No, you're good, man. It's a good start.
Sure.
Share it. Share it. No. Here. Here. Here.
This.
There.
Got some rocket fuel.
Yeah, there you go. It won't fall asleep.
Pre-Memorial Day games.
What's that?
Use the arrows.
All right. Well, it's. Yeah, it's moving there, but it's not moving there, so. You had it. So this could move in here, but it's not moving up there. This is last year's from the beginning.
Oh, it's.
And then last week.
All
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
If you want to get started.
So I'm a bit- Day.
Tammy's squaring that away and stuff for me. And that will get started. I have a couple other things and stuff. This is Russ Beach for the division. Today we have a staff discussion item for the board. Before we get into that, just a couple of quick updates. As Michael noted, our bill passed, and we're going to be going into the rulemaking process. Next month, the staff is going to be doing a presentation to the board. We'll have a copy of the new act. Hopefully it'll be signed by the governor. We're waiting anxiously for that to occur. But we'll go through the process of rulemaking just in a general point so that the board understands and stuff, what the responsibilities of staff are, and what our work's going to be cut out for us and stuff before we get it in front of you. And we'll talk a little bit about the process so that we're meeting the board's needs and stuff in that as we work our way through that. Also, the other thing I wanted to let you know is on April 23rd, we had our third and final public comment forum. Thank you to Board Member Nelson and stuff for sitting in on that. We made a point of reaching out to some of our environmental groups and others outside of the industry, the stakeholders and stuff, to try to get some comments. The first two ones were primarily in industry and consultants. So we wanted to make sure and stuff that we had a broad discussion and stuff on the different issues and stuff that come along with public comment and stuff. And just in general, there wasn't any really aha moments, but there are some comments and stuff and that maybe some suggestions and stuff that we could talk to the board about. So, you got me?
I'm working on it.
All right.
It's
It was there.
It was there.
All right. Cool. So for today, San Miguel County is in the process of updating their mining regulations. They haven't done them in a decade or so. And so Jeff Fugate and myself have been engaged with their planning commission and their staff. And regarding some of the issues and stuff that they are encountering, certainly industry has had their say in the process and that moving forward. And so we're continuing to have dialogue and stuff with the county commission, the commissioners and the planning commission and their staff. In some of our meetings and stuff like that, they've had some questions or they've had questions and stuff that we didn't have an opportunity necessarily to address. So that created an opportunity for us to reach out to them and provide them with a presentation that gave them some information and some education. So today, what we want to do is present that to the board, primarily in stuff, some of this is stuff you'll already have seen, so we'll blow through that. But also it ties into a couple of questions and stuff we just had and stuff on bonding. The county had questions on what we do for bonding and what we do to ensure those bonds are in place and that. So with me today, have Amy Udell is on board. And she'll talk a little bit about our bonding process of how we actually calculate out the bonds. And then Sarah Stevenson-Bin is our financial warranty specialist. And she's the one that actually has oversight over the paperwork, the actual bonds themselves, and talk just briefly and stuff about what we do and stuff to ensure that those bonds and stuff are adequate, are in good standing. So really quick, like I said, this is stuff that you've seen before. This is our organizational chart, and that I won't bore you with that. I presented to them the stuff, the 4 different teams. We went over this in January, and I pointed out to them the stuff specifically and stuff the specialists, the stuff that has oversight over San Miguel County, Lucas West, and I'm glad to know the stuff that they did note that Lucas has been in contact and stuff with the state, with the county planning staff and stuff on a number of issues and stuff there. And then also the rough breakdown. This is a little bit of an older map and stuff, but it gives an idea and stuff of our breakdown of our teams and stuff that have oversight over which areas and stuff within the state. Again, we talked about our authority under the Surface Coal Mining Act, the Hard Rock Act, as well as the Construction Materials Act, and then those corresponding rules that go there. And then our objectives and regulatory requirements and stuff and that go into that, promoting the responsible development of the minerals and energy while protecting the public health and safety, making sure that the lands are returned to a beneficial use, making sure that the regulatory compliance of coal and mineral sites and stuff through inspections, and also coordinating that, with permitting and stuff with other, with the public as well as other state, local and federal agencies. Again, you've seen this, you know, our processes include permitting, inspections, enforcement, bonding, and reclamations. And as noted and stuff in that, we're under the hard rock and extraction construction materials that allows us to, allows for the continued development of mining operation. And we aid in the protection of wildlife and aquatic resources and promote the health and safety of the general welfare of the people of the state of Colorado. Again, like I said, this stuff is you've all is a little bit of repeat, you know, but it was for their benefit. You know, we are staff to the board, and any decisions that the staff make and that are appealable to the board, and all of our enforcement actions are brought before the board for consideration and decision by the board. And you've seen this picture before, picture of Cripple Creek. There's a picture of gravel pits there and stuff. Actually, I think they're constructing a slurry wall there, some quarries and molly mines. And our favorite picture and stuff that we stole from Wallstrom and stuff, the bighorn sheep and stuff off the reclaimed sites. I broke down for them. This is specific and is certainly, we'll use this as a template if other counties and stuff are interested, but this is specific data for San Miguel County. They have 15 active mining permits. They're of those 15, 5 of them are actually county road and bridge permits, which do not require a bond. There's 5 112 DMOs. These are all historic uranium mines and stuff that are in their area. And there's also 3 Department of Energy DOE lease sites and stuff that are in final reclamation. And there is 1 that is in temporary cessation. And then they have 8 notices of intent, 7 of those for uranium and 1's a placer mine. So, and then over the past 25 years, there's been 3 approved permits for construction materials. There have been 2 denied and 5 revoked. We've had 88 reclaimed permits that have been reclaimed and terminated. And currently we hold $1.75 million and stuff in bonds and stuff for our permits and stuff in that area. So. Talked a little bit about coal mining. They don't have they have historical coal mining and stuff in San Miguel County, but they don't have any current ones and stuff. But we talked about the coal mining that's there. Showed them you know, some of the reclamation and stuff at the New Horizon mine, which is in Montrose County, just north of Telluride. And we talked about the mine safety program and also that you know, their road and bridge folks and stuff and that attends the safety trainings and stuff that we help put on. And last year, as noted and stuff, they're here and stuff. We had over 4,500 miners and stuff that got their annual training and that. And then we briefly talked about the Coal Mine Board of Examiners and their responsibilities. Again, it's not necessarily anything of stuff that's directly for San Miguel County. However, like so, we were just trying to go over that. So, and then one of the things and stuff, the inactive mines and stuff has had several projects and stuff in San Miguel County and surrounding counties. So we gave an overview of their funding and some of the projects and stuff that they do. You guys have seen this map before. It's a little bit outdated too, because there should be more dots on here, but these are a list of representation of the projects and stuff that we have. And you'll note and that along their southeast border and stuff there with San Juan County and that there's quite a few sites and stuff that have been reclaimed and stuff there. Talked about coal mine fire abatement. Certainly the board and stuff is aware of that, and all of the work and stuff that our AML folks and stuff are dealing with there. And our water quality improvement projects for the abandoned mine. And some of the accomplishments and stuff that we've had there over the years and stuff, which Director Graves and stuff has discussed with you. So with that, I'm going to turn over the presentation and stuff to Amy Udell. Amy is online and stuff from her office in Rifle,
and with the Grand Junction Field Office. And what she's going to do and stuff is walk you through our CERCES program and the bonding regulations and that. So Amy is our EPS3 and stuff when it comes to this. And so I will turn it over to her.
Hello, everybody. Sorry if I sound like crap. That's part of why I'm going at home today. So bear with me. Oh, Russ, you need to stop sharing yours so I can share mine. It
Yeah.
says.
Let's see. All right. I'm trying to get it.
I got you. I know it's like craziness. I got you.
It's you.
There's nothing.
All right. Can you guys all see the pretty PowerPoint screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, my name is Amy Eldell. I'm the EPS3 for bonding out of the Grand Junction Field Office, and I'm going to give you guys an overview on reclamation cost estimating. So I'll skim over the kind of basics in law, but also giving you guys an example of how operator and the division estimates vary greatly. The steps in the reclamation cost estimating process, the indirect costs that the division holds, a demonstration on what CERCES looks like, provide you an overview of the sources for costs that the division uses, as well as a discussion regarding the partnership the state is doing with the state of Montana for making a web-based application of CERCES. So under both the Coal and Minerals Act, bonding is required. Specifically, it states that the division is required to hold a reclamation bond for all permitted sites, that the bond shall be sufficient to assure the completion of the approved reclamation plan. The bond amount assumes that the work is to be completed by a third party because it would be done in the event of forfeiture, which means that the division's bonds are actually going to be higher than what it costs the operator to do their own reclamation on site. And then the final piece, it requires the operators to provide the division with their own estimates. And at the bottom of the screen, those are the actual citations for the coal and the minerals rules that require this. And so, as I alluded to, the rules and regs require the operators and new applicants to supply the division with estimates when they're submitting either a new application or most revisions that have bonding implications. However, the rules do not specify what these estimates will look like. So, as you might guess, they tend to vary in quality. We may get something very rudimentary that looks like this. It's super generic. It's not really clear about what is exactly being covered. If there's phasing any specific equipment, anything like that. I'd like to say that these tend to be more of a thing of the past, but every once in a while we kind of do get one that's, 4 line items and that's it. On a more rare occasion, we may actually get this full in-depth detailed cost estimate that's super transparent about what is or is not being covered. Some of the better estimates will specifically tell us the equipment that they're going to use, what phases it applies to, and then any indirect or administrative costs that also need to be factored in. So given the wide range of variability of quality for these estimates, the division needed a way to standardize the cost estimates and ensure continuity between different mining operations. And honestly, we couldn't just simply trust the operators to tell us how much they think their bond would be. And so all of this led to the creation of CERCES, which stands for the Colorado Integrated Reclamation Cost Estimating Software. It was developed in the late 90s and into the early 2000s and was eventually integrated into the permit system. So specifically what CERCES does is it provides standardized cost estimating methodology by providing complete task lists. Because it's automated, it minimizes calculation errors, provides accuracy and consistency, as well as continuity between specialists and sites. It produces clear documented cost sheets that are transparent, and then they're also defensible if we do need to provide those estimates to you guys, the board, public, or anyone really. So these are the basic steps in the estimating process. So all specialists first, you start out with the permit file or the application, and this is going to include things like the mining and the reclamation plan, any maps, potentially operator estimates or annual reports if it was a pre-existing site. Generally, the specialist will also conduct a site inspection to ensure that site conditions do not exceed the liability that's described in the permit and that everything kind of jibes from the paperwork to the actual physical site. Next, the specialist will prepare a task list. So this could be, for instance, demolition of a surface facility, backfill a portal, decompact the pad, apply topsoil and reach. Once they know what they're going to do for the specific task, they need to decide how much is going to be done. And so this is going to be estimating stockpile volumes, acres to be seeded, any distances or grades for transporting of materials. Once the specialist knows what they're going to do and how much, they need to decide specifically how they want to do that. And so within CERC, specialists are able to select the appropriately sized equipment or the type of equipment that they want to use to maximize efficiency and minimize costs in that bond. And then from there, it's more or less plugging and chugging the direct costs into the CERC's program. And then lastly, because these projects are completed in the event of forfeiture, there is additional cost associated with completing of reclamation, which are referred to as the indirect costs. So the direct costs are pretty straightforward. It costs X amount of dollars to regrade a high wall that's, say, 300 feet. What tends to vary are the indirect costs. And so as I previously stated, the indirect costs are additional expenses that it would cost the division in the event of bond forfeiture, and the division has to act as a coordinator of the reclamation work. The first section that you would see on any of our bonds is going to say contractors overhead and profit, or referred to as OMP. Most government contracts require that the contractor obtain adequate liability insurance, have a performance bond, and keep a job superintendent on site at all times. And these costs are all included underneath the OMP section, and collectively with the direct costs make up what we refer to as the contract amount. So the first section is that liability insurance. That comes from RS means, which is 2.02% of the direct costs. The performance bond, the division uses the average range of values provided under RS means, which is 1.06% of the direct costs. And as I mentioned, the Colorado Procurement Code requires contractors keep a job superintendent on site for all jobs that work is being performed on. On small projects involving only one piece of equipment, the operator may double as the job superintendent. And the division's general rule of thumb is the job superintendent hours shall be 50% of the total task hours generated. And the hourly rate for that job superintendent also comes from RS means. Lastly, the division estimates the contractor profit is approximately 10% of the direct cost, because obviously nobody's doing this work for free. We have to factor that in as well. The other section, there's a second section for indirect costs. So in addition to the costs that the division incurs, they have their own administrative expenses in preparing these contracts and managing the project to completion. So if you want to think about it, this is more of like the IMP section of things. So the first one is the financial warranty processing fee. For certain types of financial warranties, there may be a significant legal and administrative costs incurred by the division in securing these funds. The rules and regulations require that the office recover the costs or fees incurred in securing these funds. And typically this amount is $500. Things like cash bonds tend to be zero because we already have the money in hand. With regards to the construction management and work specification preparation, because these projects are typically forfeited midway through mining, there is some level of redesign that is required, and it costs the division money to write these contracts and go through the bidding process. So for minerals, these costs come from RS means. RS means provides a range of values expressed as the percentage of the contract amount. Minerals uses the average range of these percent, which is 4.25. And like I said, it's applied to the contract amount. For coal, like there are the range of values, coals typically uses the percentage of the total project cost. So rather than using the average, it's going to be on a sliding scale, and they based on the total direct cost, and that amount is also applied to the contract amount. And so reclamation management and project administrative expenses. So after the contract work and the specification is defined, the contract actually goes out to bid, the bidder is selected. The project itself has to be managed, inspected, and revised until the project is complete, and all of this part also requires money. The minerals rules require a 5% administrative cost, and that's based on rule 4.2.1 parent 6. And then for the coal rules, there is also values provided under RS means on that sliding scale as well. So Cole uses the percentage that ties to the direct cost and it's applied to the contract amount. And then lastly, with all projects, there is always some level of uncertainty. Ideally, the specialists kind of factor that into their estimates. But for projects with lots of unknowns, an additional 3% may be applied to the direct cost for a contingency allowance. Okay, so far we've covered what our bonds look like, the division's estimating steps, and then the indirect cost. But my favorite part is actually when you estimate. And so I'm going to show you what Cersei's looks like. And so this is an example of a really simple estimate that you'd see. The first task is decompaction, then there's backfill and slope reduction. There's the hauling the topsoil and then spreading it, and then re-veg of the affected lands and then immobilization. Any of the Cersei's bond calculations can have as many or as little tasks necessary to clearly outline what each reclamation task is based on the site. So I apologize if this might look a little bit funky on your screen, trying to fit it all onto one. This is an example of the bulldozer task sheet. Each task sheet in Cersei's is going to include a task description. It's going to allow the specialist to select the appropriately sized equipment as well as any attachments if that applies to that type of equipment. Then the specialist is going to go in and they're going to enter the input volumes. Cersei's automatically will adjust for swell based on the material type. And there's a drop down and they can, all those material descriptions come from the CAT handbook. And then everything is calculated based on the loose cubic yards. Specialists also get to adjust the production inputs, things like push distances or grades, especially in Colorado and our high altitude sites. Altitude plays a factor in how efficient the equipment is, as well as the material being graded. There's also other correction factors that Cersei's updates, and these all come from the CAT handbook as well. And so after specialist enters all of the data into the sections, it goes and it pulls together all of the numbers. And at the very bottom, you select the number of the fleet size, so the number of dozers that you want to use for this specific task. And Cersei's automatically calculates the total job time and the cost for this specific task. Most of the equipment task sheets are going to look like this for like excavators and scrapers and stuff. They're pretty similar. And I'll show you a couple more examples of a few other task sheets. And so similar to the dozer sheet, this is the truck and loader sheet. So again, at the very top of the sheet, you're going to select the type of truck that you want to use. Specifically on this one, you're going to do the loader equipment, which is like the physical scooping item that's loading the truck, whether it's a loader, an excavator, shovel. Also, what's unique about the scraper and the truck tabs is it allows you to include support equipment because you may need extra equipment on the front or the back side, as well as potentially using a grader or water truck to maintain the roads. From there, the specialist can go in and adjust the fleet quantities as well as the utilization rate. So just because the water truck's on site doesn't mean that you want it actively operating 100% of the time, and you can adjust those percentages. Then just like on the other tab, specialists enter in the input volumes based on the material type and the units. Cersei's automatically adjusts for any shrink or swell that we need. The other thing that's nice about the scrapers and the truck tabs is it also allows right here for specialists to add in if we need to purchase equipment. So say we have a site that's short on topsoil, we can put in the per cubic yard cost of purchasing the topsoil, and it automatically factors it into that task as well. And so then Cersei's as well, based on the loading piece of equipment that you use, automatically calculates the number of scoops it's going to take to fill that truck to max it out, whether it's on volume or weight. And this is the bottom half of the scrapers and the truck tabs. So the other correction factors, similar to the dozer tab, they're going to have material density, but it's also got things like dump targets. So if you're putting topsoil or something adjacent to a wetland and you've got to be really precise versus you're just dumping and going, it allows corrections for that. For the scrapers and the trucks, you also need to have that cycle time. So specialists will enter the type of road that they're driving on, because a bumpy road is going to be a lot slower than a nice smooth paved highway, as well as the grades, whether or not you're going up or down, because those all affect how long it physically takes the trucks to make their rounds. Based on all of those things, Cersei's calculates the optimum number of trucks per the loading tool because you always want to keep your loading tool busy 100% of the time if possible. So it'll tell you how many trucks you need to make sure that someone's always being loaded while they're making those turns. And then at the very bottom, like all the other tasks, you specify the fleet size that you want to use and the total job hours as well as the total job costs are automatically calculated. And so this is a screenshot from the reveg section. Most sites have some sort of revegetation. And so specialists are able to toggle through the various categories, kind of like a shopping cart at the top. As you can see, there is fertilizing, tilling, seeding, mulching, and nursery. This one is specifically what the seeding tab looks like. And so what specialists do is Cersei's has over 450 different seed species in its list. And so the specialist will go through and build their seed mix. Essentially, they'll click, the bluegrass, and they'll say that they wanted it 0.011 PLS per acre, and you add all those things to your cart. And then once your seed mix is calculated, you go through and you specify the type of seeding that you want. As you guys are probably aware, anything other than drill seeding, the seeding rate should be doubled. Cersei's automatically doubles the math on it if you're going to do something like hydro seeding or broadcasting. And so the way Cersei's does it is everything is made up of like a materials and then an application. So the first part is going to be your materials, and it's going to give you the total cost per acre for that physical seed, then the total cost per acre for physically putting the seed down, and then a cumulative cost for the seeding application. And so once the specialists are done essentially building their cart, adding and tilling, mulching, whatever they think that the site needs based on the reclamation plan, it all gets brought together on this summary tab. So the specialist will enter in the number of acres that are going to receive those reclamation treatments. They specify the specific failure rate for that site, and that is the number of acres or the percentage of the site that they need to go back and do touch-up seeding on. There's also options for down below. Say we don't want to add fertilizer for a second go around because we don't want to burn things up, but we still need to go back and seed. They can select what applications are going to happen the second go around. And so then from there, that Cersei's produces a initial seeding cost, the reseeding cost, and then the total job costs. The total job hours is not automatically populated, and that's just because it can really range. There's a wide range based on the application measures, but generally for a typical drill seeding and mulching, it's usually about 1 acre per hour is what most sites get. And so Cersei's has a ton of equipment sheets. In there's things like generators, if there was power, pumping for dewatering of ponds, truck and loader, like I talked about. There's also borehole plugging. If we have like groundwater monitoring wells that need to be plugged, pretty much you name it, it is in Cersei's. But if there isn't something that's in there, specialists do have the option to enter in user provided items. So sometimes you'll see that for like topsoil, purchasing topsoil offsite. They don't do it through the truck tab. They just put in like a total lump sum, like $100,000 in topsoil. So once all of the individual tasks are entered into Cersei's, they are summarized on what we call the direct cost sheet. The task sheets are going to list out all of them based on the task number. They're going to include a descriptive title telling you what these things they're doing. It'll specify the form they're being used, so the dozer tab, scraper tab, what have you, the fleet size, and then like I said, the task hours and direct costs are also shown here. And then there's a subtotal on here. And then last but not least, the indirect costs are applied. So these are all the indirect costs that we talked about previously. All the specialist has to do is either click the checkbox or use the drop down to apply them. And they're all automatically factored in and multiplied as needed. Once the specialist finishes adding in the indirect costs, they generate the cost summary sheet as well as each of the task sheets by hitting the create Word doc sheet. This generates PDFs. They just PDF everything together. And then they've got one full, complete, transparent reclamation cost estimate. And so that's kind of when, people talk about Cersei's being a magic calculator. That's truly why it is. You don't have to be an expert on efficiency on dozer rates. You just have to know what type of equipment you're using and how you want to use it. And Cersei's will come up with the dollar sides of it all. So Cersei's would not be a magic calculator, though, without all of the background data that it uses. Specifically, we get our equipment ownership and operating costs from a program called Equipment Watch. We have a subscription to it, and we do the rental Blue Book monthly rates for those. Our production data and efficiency rates, correction factors, all of that stuff specific to the equipment itself comes from the CAT handbook. Things like demolition costs, detoxification, boreholes, and some of the revegetation stuff comes from RSMeans, which is also a national-wide database that has special disciplinary subjects that we pay for books out of. Our operator rates, taxes, and fringe benefits and all of that are published by CDOT, and these are actually the Davis-Bacon wedges, so they're good for federal jobs as well. I also reach out and get work and get numbers from Jeff every year for the Inactive Mines program. They provide us a lot of their specialized costs based on actual project data. And then when in doubt, anything that we can't physically just get a cost from a quick database, specifically, it's usually the seating costs. We do survey costs periodically. And so part of what makes this such a robust tool and is accurate is that the project costs are actually updated every year. All of the costs that are listed on the previous slide get updated every year for things like inflation or just general project costs over time. The only exception to this being, as I said earlier, is the re-veg cost, because there are over 450 different seed species. That takes quite a bit of time. So we only do the survey every 3 to 4 years, but the actual re-veg costs do still get updated annually for inflation. Needless to say, there's a lot of data. And so one of my primary responsibilities is actually maintaining that database in conjunction with the cost estimating task force. Most of this data that we get is published every March. And so it takes us a couple of months to source it all, update the spreadsheets, and test it all. And then the updates every year go live July 1. And so you'll see a change in the cost estimates for everything after July for the year goes live. So that's when the 2025 prices will actually hit. So the division and the CERCES program has been a national-wide leader for a number of years with regards to cost estimating. Recently, the division paired with the Montana DEQ to develop a web-based program of CERCES. The intention is to make the CERCES program available to operators. Montana testing is complete and the application is considered ready for publication. However, at this time, Montana has chose to not publish this application just yet. With that being said, the code itself has been shared back with Colorado as well as the Office of Surface Mining for continued development and publication and kind of tweaking it however they want it. There is no official publication date, though. None of it's been established yet. And then other than that, if people have questions, I know that was a lot.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So how does this jive with the operators' estimates usually, or how does that get resolved?
It depends. So like I said, the operators are always supposed to provide us with their own estimate. And the whole point of that is we don't want to like make up numbers, right? Like we want them to tell us, we estimate that this phase is 30,000 cubic yards. That way it's not the staff's numbers. It may be our calculator, but we're not arguing the inputs. We want them to provide us as many of the inputs as humanly possible. And then from there, it's our actual unit costs that get applied. Typically, most good operators know where the numbers from CERCES come from. They may not like them, right? If we say it's a $500,000 increase or something crazy like that, but they get it. And part of with our sheets being so transparent is we're happy if they want to have those discussions, we'll provide them with the sheets. We show them the things that we can change. And those are things like the inputs, like the cubic yards, push distances, potentially material type. The things that the division does not negotiate on are the unit costs. Those are our costs. If, say, they are short on topsoil, they can provide us with 3 independent quotes from, where they think that they might get their material from. And those quotes need to be good to the division as well as to the operator. We'll make them renew them periodically if we really need to go down that road. But I would say, like, in general, most operators that are the bigger guys, right, that really know how reclamation goes, they agree that our numbers are pretty on par, and they understand why they are what they are. And at the end of the day, as long as the operator does their own reclamation, we won't have to call in the chip for the number. And it's supposed to incentivize them to do their own reclamation. But in the event that that doesn't happen, we have to protect the state's liability. We've got to make sure that we have enough money to give IMP to do those projects the way they need to be carried out.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
That was totally it. This is all based on retail rates.
It is, and that's the thing. So it's all third party.
I mean, I can't imagine an operator not wanting to do it themselves. They got all this stuff.
That is the carrot, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so.
And also, just to build a little bit, like for our bigger operators such as Climax, Henderson, CC&B, we've gone, in the last several years, we've gone through excruciatingly long processes and stuff and that to get all of this built out so that it's a lot more manageable for us and stuff to do real-time adjustments in that. But it took a lot of effort by staff and by the operator and stuff to go back and forth to come up with everything that everybody could agree on and stuff there. So we have, when you're talking, several million, hundreds of billions of dollars, there's a lot of discussion that has to go into that and stuff to come up with a number that everybody can agree on.
Yeah.
So is this adjusting bonds on an annual basis?
It doesn't adjust the bonds on it, it adjusts the cost. When we go out and do an inspection, and that part of our protocol and stuff is when we do that inspection, then we do an update to the bond and stuff, and that's when the inflation kicks in. Also, we can adjust for any type of site conditions or anything else that have changed and stuff in the time frame between the last update and the current update and stuff that's there. But staff's supposed to be doing this every time they go out and do an inspection. Sometimes where we've gotten into a little bit of trouble, and I'll be honest here, is we go out to a site that hasn't done a lot for 4 years. So the specialist looks at it, there's no change. So we go, there's no change. So there's not a lot of change to the bond. The operator likes that, but the problem and stuff is that in 8 years, if there's a change, then we have 8 years worth of inflation and that number and stuff goes up exponentially. So staff has been directed and stuff, regardless of what it is, we do it for inflation and stuff, if nothing else and stuff, so that we're not hitting them with a, kind of a compounded inflationary issue and stuff and that down the road. But we still run across them and stuff where we haven't been to a site in a while for whatever reason and stuff, and that creates an issue.
And I will note, for sites that have like large increases, it is our policy to, prior to issuing the surety increase, we kind of do a show and tell, if you will. We give them a sheet, we show them the bond and say, based on my last inspection, this is what your numbers are looking like. Did I mess anything up? Because there's always that chance, right? You might have hit like the wrong thing in Cersei's, or you fat fingered a number or something like that. So we do win the numbers. It's a significant change. We try to show them to the operator ahead of time. That way we're not under that 60-day deadline where we're having these hee-haw back and forth stuff, that they know once we issue the surety increase, that's the number, and that 60 days truly is their time to get their financial stuff in order, not, negotiate the actual bond number itself.
So I guess the question is, most of the time we don't need the bonds because the people do the work themselves. But there are people that walk away. And when we've done that, what's the track record of being able to reclaim those sites for the monies, for the bond that was there?
It depends. The Inactive Mines program does a fantastic job with the money that they have. 9 times out of 10, when we're in front of you revoking and forfeiting a bond and stuff, you'll note that the bond is not adequate. That's because the operator has gone out above and beyond what was outside their skis, or they're in some kind of financial distress or something. But we always don't, we take the mine reclamation plan and the bond and everything else. We give a whole packet to the Inactive Mines program, and they take a look at that. And as noted and stuff, sometimes we have to do some re-engineering and stuff to do the best we can with the money that we have. And that the biggest number one thing and stuff always is going to be safety, and then trying to get some kind of vegetative cover and stuff on it. It may not be a golf course and stuff in that, but on the same token and stuff, we've got something there and stuff that's trying to make it stable and that, so that the land can recover.
So that's like,
good. If I could just add on to that question and response, I think the Inactive Mines program has an excellent track record in reclaiming these sites, even when we have an operator who might be under bonded. if we needed to, we do have the ability to receive additional funds through tax to complete a project. So if we needed to, and we found ourselves in a situation where there was a human health or safety issue out there and we didn't have the ability through the bond we held, we would go through that process to ensure that we held our liability and reclaim that site.
You know, the question that I've got is along those same lines. The question that I have is along those same lines. Will help each other.
All right.
Ready?
Yep, and that.
The question that I have is along the same lines. The transit mix facility in the north side of Colorado Springs was terminated or abandoned or whatever you want to call it. And I believe it was given to the city, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. So then my question would be, how easy is it working with the municipality and trying to reclaim that property? Did the bond just go away? Did the bond transfer to the city? You know,
The bond can only be used in stuff for that, for the.
the bond was where?
The bond, it can only be used for the specific reclamation plan.
Yes.
And it's tied to the operator. If somebody else comes in and takes over, we don't have a mechanism where we can transfer a bond to somebody else. We'll certainly work with the partners and stuff and try to coordinate using the bond we have and stuff to facilitate some of the things they want to. And that, but there are certain things, if they want to turn it into a skate park and that's not part of our deal, we can't give them the money to do the skate park, but we can't do the grading and stuff, maybe stuff that does that.
So in the case of the transit mix situation, where did that bond money go?
But the question you're asking, and it's a good one. So within statute, municipalities are exempt from posting a financial warranty. So if we have a county or a town that assumes that role as a permittee, they do not have to post a financial warranty.
So
the bond that would have been held by transit mix, if a permit gets transferred to a municipality, the bond gets returned back to the financial warrantor. It may be transit mix, it might be a third party. Whoever posted that bond will receive that bond back. If the permit transfers to another company that's not a municipality, then before that permit transfer is finalized, that new company will have to replace that financial warranty.
So it seems like to me that if you've got a difficult reclamation like that one is in Colorado Springs, that the easy way out, just give it to a municipality and walk away.
I think certainly you could look at it in that way.
I mean, and if I'm wrong,
No, it is a way for a company to not perform reclamation and then to receive their bond back. But, throughout our history of our program, I will say that
well, and I'm not being critical of the program because there's nothing you could do.
no,
I mean, there's nothing that you guys could do in that situation.
right. But I think the majority of the time, thankfully, that it turns out favorably. We have excellent reclamation performed by our municipalities, and today many of our parks, greenways, trails are all
Sure.
reclaimed mine sites, and most of that reclamation was done by the municipality themselves.
And I agree with that, but I'm talking about this specific instance where we have a scar on the north side of Colorado Springs, which is the largest county in the state of Colorado now. And where are we? You guys can't do anything about it, and that's bad, I think. That you kind of got just pushed out of the way.
But we still would have a reclamation plan and a permit in place, and the responsibility would have to be carried out by that municipality.
By the city.
That's right.
When they take that on, we make it very clear that doesn't relieve them of the reclamation responsibility. They still got to figure out how to do that. And as a permittee, if they want to make any changes, they got to come in and review those, do amendments, just like any other operator. So
It seems to me, I mean, certainly the mining commission could go to them and say, this is how I think that you should reclaim this property. And I would think that the city would welcome your involvement. But I guess my point is that the operator is kind of able to just offload this on a municipality, and he walks away with clean hands and his bond.
I think but municipality has to approve.
Yeah,
Right, like they
yeah,
can't, I mean,
yeah.
they don't. I mean, they don't just say, yeah, we'll take it. They say, they actually decide whether or not they're gonna be able to perform.
Yeah, they have their
Right,
own
that's right.
processes and stuff to,
Yeah.
and they have to succeed operator on that and take that responsibility. And a couple of cases down there, I know that the city and the county and stuff, they were all involved in conversations before they took those on. So they don't just take them and stuff for that at face value. They have to do their own due diligence and understand what they're getting into. If you take a look at, like, for instance, the pipe view, in that, the operator has spent millions and millions of dollars and stuff on the stabilization and everything there. And it right now and stuff is very, very close to being reclaimed per our plans. But they're working with the city, and the idea and stuff is to turn that into a world-class bike trail. So they're working with the city there, but the operator didn't walk away. They had a responsibility there, and they have done that very, very well. Granted and stuff with a little bit of coercion and stuff from this board, but all the same and stuff that they've had that responsibility and stuff there. So and they've done a good job.
Well, I think in that situation, the city made the determination to take the property, and that was a city council decision. And so what, I mean, I'm not being disrespectful, but
Yeah.
what does the city council know about mining reclamation? Not much.
They have their own staff and they have their own vision of what they
Sure.
want to do. So that's, yeah. And that's,
But-
yeah.
But something as specific as what we do, they don't have that expertise.
So I sort of have a follow-on question. Everything is always natural precipitation. I didn't see any in the Cersei's. I didn't see any water costs. And everything I do in my whole career is, like, how fast can you get the grass to grow? So temp irrigation, stuff like that. None of that is part of these veg.
Maybe you can chime in there or even, but there are, we can include tasks such as water trucks or whatever to do watering and those kind of things. It just depends on, but you are correct, 99% of it and stuff is natural precipitation. And that's why typically and stuff, if we have a site and stuff where we're establishing vegetation, we don't go with just one season before we release it. We generally have a couple of seasons to make sure that that's a viable population and stuff there before we walk away.
Yeah, so the staff goes out and does transects, counts percent establishment, or how does that?
For coal.
Too far in the
yeah,
weeds,
yeah,
literally.
Yeah, too far in the weeds, yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's what, but for coal and stuff, there are requirements and stuff in that for density and all of that. But in the, for hard rock and minerals, it has to be equal to or better than the surrounding area and stuff. So it is kind of an eyeballing of it, if you will, and stuff there. But certainly and stuff, the vegetation and stuff that's gonna be at a uranium site in western Colorado is gonna be way different than something that's out by Lamar. And so we take that all into account.
Mr. Chair, the vast majority of our reclamation plans call for establishment of grasses. It's more common to see those watering costs included in the Cersei's calculation when we've got forbs, shrubs, or trees that
Right.
are suggested as
Got it.
reclamation.
So you have them, so they do those.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm curious about different parts of Colorado. Everything costs different. Labor costs in particular vary a lot around the state. And so is that taken into account?
Yes, and Amy could probably address that a little bit better than I can in that, but that is taken into account and stuff in that there's an average. Certainly and stuff that we take into account there. Amy, you have anything to add there?
Yeah. Yeah. So in the CDOT costs that we get, they have two sections that's considered zone 1A, which would be like metro areas, and then zone 2B, which is anything that's going to be rural. So we take like something from like Baca County, right? Yeah. And in those labor list that CDOT produces annually. They have all the different costs, whether it's like a rotomill driver, a crane operator, each one of those, and they have the labor rates based on all the counties across the state. And we use the average from a Metro Denver one and an average from a rural area. And so in the Xerces calculations, you'll actually see an adjustment that it makes on each of those on the tabs. And that's where it factors in the different labor costs based on the area where they're working. And then with regards to seating, when we do our survey, we do a statewide cost. So I pull costs from like all four corners of the state, and then we do the average of those costs. So in theory, if one seed might be really expensive in the one corner of the state, honestly, IMP might go buy it, from somewhere a couple hours away if they can get a better deal on it. But as long as we use the average, that's kind of the conservative number to weed out those like highs and lows. And then as well as for like mobilization. So if we have sites that are really hard to get to, one of the tabs that I didn't include in there to give you guys a walkthrough, but there is a mobilization tab. And so each of the direct costs that you see are specifically like the dozer actually grading on site, but that does not include getting that dozer or the crane or whatever it is to the physical site. And so there's a mobilization tab as well, where we go through and we select each of the various pieces of equipment that we're using, their size, their fleets. It includes costs for CDOT permits, like any of the overweight permits that you might need. We put in the distance from which the equipment presumably is going to be obtained from, and we take wherever like the closest Cat Wagner yard, because those are kind of a dime or a dozen all over the state. So the distance from that rental location to the mine site, and then the average truck traffic speed that they're going to go, gives us the physical driving time that we have to pay these extra haulers to get the equipment there. There's also load and unload time that's factored in there as well, and that those costs are also adjusted as well for rural areas versus Metro Denver wages. And those are also, there's within the CDOT costs, they also have what they call fringe benefits. And so those are extra things like your FICA and unemployment insurance and all of those, and those vary based on your location as well. And so the CDOT survey data that we get actually includes all of that information.
So these sites are, at what point are they not considered MSHA sites anymore?
I believe as long as there's the state has a permit, then they're considered an MSHA site, but I'm not 100% sure.
Then the CDOT rates don't apply.
The MSHA regulates mines that contribute to commerce, so it's kind of a different line in the sand than we take a look at. So theoretically, once a mine stops producing and is in final reclamation, they may not be subject to the same MSHA inspections at that point.
But that would radically affect your labor rate. Is
But
if you
OSHA
have MSHA operators versus CDOT.
But I believe in stuff like the reclamation contractor and stuff, it's still be under OSHA. And stuff when it comes to those.
At that point, yeah.
And of course, any of our sites and stuff that are on federal lands and stuff that are subject to that no matter what. So that gets, there's all sorts of things.
Yeah. Just need to be careful that we're not under bonding.
Yeah.
Especially the smaller, the ones that are more apt to walk away.
Yes. So, any other questions there before we turn it over to Sarah for a couple of quick slides?
I'll ask my pet peeve question.
Okay.
It's noxious weeds. It seems like we've done a really good job, but depending on where it is and what the surrounding land is like, you could have noxious weeds going on for 10 more years.
We, one of the tasks and stuff and that in our re-veg and stuff is for weed control. And that, and certainly if we have a site and stuff that has a particular issue and stuff, and that will take those into account. And we have had sites and stuff where we have our site, our permitted site and stuff, and that we've hammered, to get rid of knapweed or tamarisk or something, and it looks fine, but just on the other side of the permit boundary and stuff, it's just nothing but a forest and stuff. There's nothing we can do there. Typically and stuff, what we have done is we've reached out to the county weed control and stuff to point that out. And in a few cases, it's been county property and stuff that's happened. But yeah, we're aware of that and, you know, we do our best. And we also, you know, when we're releasing the site, if the operator's done everything they can that's reasonable and they've gotten everything and you know, they've sprayed weeds and stuff time and time again, but they're being influenced from the outside and stuff, we've had to take that into account and stuff in a release request.
I'm gonna ask one more question, then I'm gonna shut up.
No, this is fine. So,
Well, and I'm gonna go back to the transit mix situation. And I know we're talking about 1%. But that mine was probably 120 years old. On the north side of Colorado Springs. They did, here's what happened, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they finished the mine. They gave the property to the city of Colorado Springs, and then they immediately sold their company to another company. So they're gone. They're gone, their bond's gone, they're out of the picture completely. So I guess my question is, would it be reasonable that we ask the legislature to pass a bill that would give the mining board and the reclamation board some oversight or some sign off in a situation like that?
Well, still have. I'll address that. I think certainly that is the pleasure of the board. If that is a concern, you think that it needs to be addressed.
Well, I'm just throwing it out.
Sure.
Would it not make sense that the mining board have a sign off that the state of Colorado could go to the city of Colorado Springs or Boulder or any other city and say, hey, before you accept that, we have to sign off on the reclamation?
Well, we would have signed off on the reclamation in that example. And so, you know, it'd be an existing permit that staff or the board has already approved that carries forward with that project.
So the board did approve that.
Yes, if there was a permit, it was either approved at the staff level, or if there was, you know, perhaps objections, then the board would have approved that plan. So there is approval on all of our plans.
And the other thing and stuff to keep in mind and stuff is historical perspective. Some of the things and stuff that were acceptable and stuff back in the 50s, 60s, mid 70s or whatever and stuff like that, you know, benching a quarry, that was it. That was the reclamation, and you have a whole bunch of benches and stuff. Today we don't do that. The picture and stuff of the bighorn sheep and stuff on that was a bench, a reclaimed bench. So in today's reclamation plans, they're totally different than what was previously approved. If somebody hasn't done anything and stuff, any kind of revisions or amendments or anything and stuff, they have a 1970s permit and it says that benching is the final reclamation. Us as staff, you as board, that's the approved reclamation, whether you like it or not. That's what this stuff was approved, and we don't have any authority to try to push them to do anything else beyond what was originally approved. So you have to keep that in perspective in mind and stuff as well.
Yeah, I'll just add real quickly. So to provide some more context, this is Scott Schultz, counsel for the division, is that I think what you're talking about is a very unique circumstance in here. And I think that the division could provide you kind of an update as to that specific site, but I think they need a little time to prepare and provide you with the details. Cause I think, again, this is public. I just don't want this to be misinterpreted. I think that there's just a few things missing. It kind of some of your questions. I don't think the board ever kind of abdicated responsibility and the bond just went away. So I think maybe for the future, the division could provide you kind of an update as to this specific site.
Yeah, and I don't think that the board abdicated its responsibility at all. I don't think that for a minute. But what I do question is, where's the bond money? That's gone.
I think the division could provide you some more details into that. I don't think it's quite that clear cut.
Okay.
In this situation, there's just a lot more to this specific site than I think we're able to provide you right right now.
Yeah, would that be possible, just to have a
Sure.
10-bullet review of where that is for the next meeting? To say, this is what happened and that the responsibility for reclamation.
Right, we can give you a chronology.
You
and
know,
stuff.
chronology, and
Yes.
this is where the current responsibility for
Sure.
reclamation is.
Yeah.
And then everybody knows like who is supposed to be reclaiming it, or
I mean, if this is 100% one-off, it's still a big deal because it's a problem. And it's our job to make sure that you don't have problems like that.
Right, I think this site did get some press a year or so ago when this process was going through, but I just think that there's a lot more to it. And I just don't want to be dismissive of any of your questions, but the tangent,
Sure.
the scary tangential amount of information that I know is that there is more to it, and that it's not quite as simple as the county bought it and the bond went away. There is a lot more going on, and I think it's still going on in this regarding this site.
In that situation, I don't think the county had much to do with it. It went to the city.
Sorry, the
And it
state,
was,
sure.
it was the city that bought it. And again, I'll go back to how the city operates. It's the city council that makes that decision. And I assure you, no one on that city council knows anything about reclamation.
Of course, and I think that just giving the division some time to provide you the context of this, again, unique site, I think will be very helpful and provide the full details of where this site currently is at.
I'd be interested.
So maybe I'll feel better.
Yes.
I mean, I'd be interested to know.
You guys trying to help me out?
Yeah. But you have a next.
Yeah, we've got a couple of more slides and we're done and stuff
Great.
here and stuff that we kind of went off on a sidetrack, but that's cool. So in that we appreciate the opportunity and stuff to have discussions and stuff here. So Sarah, are you with us? There Sarah is.
Well, I'd like to thank Amy too.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was very well done
Yeah.
and very informative.
That powered through it with a cold or whatever she has there. So we
Yeah.
appreciate that. So.
Very good, Amy.
So we have a couple of slides here to talk a little bit about our actual financial warranties. When we talk about the bonds and that, we have Sarah Stevenson Ben is our financial warranty expert. And so we're going to go through a couple of quick slides here just to kind of tell you what we do and stuff to that to make sure that these all these bonds that are submitted and stuff are kept in good standing. So Sarah, I'll turn it over to you and I'll go to the next slide here and we'll go from there. So.
Good morning. Again, my name is Sarah Stevenson Ben. I've been with the division for about 4 or 5 years now. Just something of note here, financial warranty, we often use this interchangeably with the term bond. With our bonding package, there's 3 separate documents that I require: a financial warranty, a performance warranty, and an affidavit of authority. These here are our different rules that we provided for the county, just so that they were aware of the statute numbers at how we are allowed to collect these documents. And I'm assuming since you all are familiar with the performance warranties, this is just a written promise that says the operator is going to follow all the acts and rules along with the approved reclamation permit. And Amy went through in great detail how all of these financial warranty calculations are made. And she also talked about the surety increases, and that is something that I also work with the division to collect. And let's see here. We can go to the next slide. These are the types of warranties that we do collect: a cash warranty or a wire transfer. This is typically preferred by a smaller operator. Corporate sureties, and I do double check that these are approved surety companies through the U.S. Department of Treasury. Letters of credits and CDs, and also any combination of the above. So if there is a surety increase and somebody wants to send in a check, but previously they had used a letter of credit, they can send me a check for the increased amount only. So we do take any combination of these payment types. Also of note, we audit our letters of credit and our CDs annually. I'm currently doing that right now. This is a great safeguard to make sure there's no funny business going on. letters of credits and CDs cannot be closed without giving DRMS 90 days notice. Every now and then, something kind of slips through the cracks at the bank, and this audit helps to ensure that everything is in good standing. And I know that corporate sureties are going to be audited by our treasury and accounting departments, I think next week. So those will also go through an audit too. And I think that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions. Russ is going to go over the memorandums of understanding for us.
So just go into, so if they pay cash or that go into escrow the state and you guys collect interest on it versus them doing a letter of credit.
By statute and stuff, we return the interest and stuff to
Oh, you
them
do?
annually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
really?
so we hold the actual bond, but the interest and stuff, but it's through the state treasury. So the return rate is very, very conservative. I'll just put it that way.
Got it.
Yeah. So.
But it's a wash. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And that, we're not allowed and stuff, at least under current statute and stuff.
Got it.
And that's short and sweet, but it's important and stuff to know that we don't just get the documents and we step away from them and forget about them until unless we need them and stuff. And that Sarah's always on top of that. We're doing audits and stuff on that, on these, especially on the CDs and that, because we have had in the past, especially smaller banks, the operator goes in and pulls the CD and we don't know about it. Then the bank's on the hook because of the language and stuff in our documents and stuff. And so we want to make sure and stuff everybody's on the understands the stuff, the responsibility and stuff there. So and finally, the last one and stuff that we have here, and that is just like I said, this is informational and stuff, and that you should know this, but if not, we do have memos of understandings and stuff and that with our other agencies when it comes to permitting and that. With the Forest Service, the BLM, and the Department of Energy, we do a lot of correspondence back and forth. If they get an application, they let us know. If we get an application, we let them know. And then by the rules and stuff, the applicant and us are supposed to be notifying these other agencies. And the big thing for currently with the Forest Service and the BLM, we're the primary financial warranty holder, and that for the Department of Energy, the lease tracks and stuff, and that they are the primary. So it's kind of a reverse role. By act and rule, we have to have at least a minimum of $100 bond. In that, we have to hold a bond in order to issue a permit. And per statute, that's $100. So sometimes you'll see, we brought it and stuff before the board, we say we have $100 bond and everybody's ears go up and stuff. It's because the other agency is holding the primary bond. And we coordinate back and forth on that amount. If we think there should be a bond increase, we'll talk to DOE and we'll work our way through all of that so that we come up to an agreeable number with the operator and stuff and with the same thing and stuff with the BLM, if we come up with a number, sometimes the stuff we're comparing apples to oranges and stuff. So staff will get together, have a conversation and stuff and come up with something that's agreeable to both sides. So, and with that, that's the end of that, and I'll stop sharing here, hopefully.
And I will say, maybe just to chime in on what Russ was saying at the end. So any of the sites that we share with BLM per that MOU prior to staff issuing an increase, they should be concurring with those other agencies, whether it's BLM, Forest Service, or DOE, and making sure that the bond works for everyone. Because if it's a shared pot of money, it also needs to fulfill the requirements for that BLM or Forest Service. And if there are things outside of the division's jurisdiction that the BLM or the Forest Service is requiring, like say visual impacts or something like that, we do have some sites where we'll do like a specific line item that says BLM required something, so that that shared pot of money still works for everybody, but it's also clear what things the division our permits are requiring versus what things are we in the, what's the word? And an effort to like make it work for everybody, right? And being super transparent, we'll list out those single items so that the operator knows which agency is requiring which things financially.
Got it.
this went a little bit long, but that's okay. We had a discussion, and it's great. One of the things and stuff is specific sites and stuff, you're always more than welcome stuff to give us a call, give me a call. And I'll dig up information and we can have a one-on-one, talk about that. If I don't have the answers and stuff immediately and stuff, and then I'll get them as soon as possible. So.
I just wanted to reiterate, thank you, Amy and Sarah and Russ. Excellent. It's really good to know that somebody's watching.
Okay, and like I said, this is, we did this with San Miguel County. We have, I've done some work and stuff with, Rio Blanco County and a couple of other counties and stuff. So always open and stuff to have discussions with counties and stuff and that about our processes and what we do. So. But with that, then we're done.
Do we have any public? We do not have any public comment? Executive session? Nope. You don't want to chit chat, okay. Great. Do I need a motion to adjourn or just the meeting is adjourned? Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
A little better. That's still taking these. I mean, we want
We're trying.
yeah, man.
We're trying.
Breaking me in.
Oh.